Good to see you as always.
I'm paying no attention to you. I was trailing the lyrics of I Will Follow.
My apologies.
The great drum riffs in the U2 song, if you listen to that. I Will Follow.
There we go.
There you go. Larry Mullen Jr. on the drums.
We'll pushing it up for you.
Okay, so we can go back to the questions. Great intro song. Best one of the day.
There you go. Is that your favorite band?
Absolutely.
How many U2 concerts along the way?
Like a dozen. Best one was I got to see them in 2017 in Ireland, in Croke Park in Dublin. Awesome night.
You a big concert guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Not been to any. In fact, Charlie Hussey and I were talking last night. Zach Brown's coming to Birmingham or the Oak Mountain Amphitheater. Kenny Chesney's up in New York where I'm going, so got some opportunities.
This has not been a summer that has lent itself for relaxing vacations, right?
Not at all. But I haven't had any of those in the last few years. The job kind of overrides what you would say is controlling your life. And when Mike Slive retired, he made a comment about being able to control his schedule. And I'd worked with him. I'd been there, and I didn't really understand what he's saying. And I've lived it now. So you really have to adjust yourself mentally to say, I'm not going to get the kind of relaxing break, and so I need to take moments for myself. And I've been a lot better at doing that, both daily and weekly. But there's not the ability to shut it down for a week and not answer your phone.
One of the things that you talked about yesterday was the need for change at the NCAA level. And you outlined several different things, the rule book being antiquated and different things that need to happen. You were chair of the Committee on Infractions. And so I'm kind of asking this in the spirit of, can you sometimes be too close to a situation to see what needs to change? When did you become aware that there were some serious changes that needed to happen? Was it while you were still there, or did it take getting away from that situation and maybe looking at it through the lens of the schools?
Both. So while I was there, I raised some issues that I've raised since. But the luxury of stepping away helps inform once just being away from it. When you're too close, you're too close. But, Richard, I don't think I've said anything now publicly that I wasn't saying internally about the timing of cases, about the penalty matrix that's applied, about some of the changes made that expanded the Committee on Infractions and the lack of evaluation of the process. I said when I left the committee back in 2018 that I was going to write a white paper, which sounds really academic, and what I wrote was an 8-page letter finally to say, hey, here are the things that have to be addressed. And some of those are being addressed. Some are not. A lot of it's caught up in kind of the bureaucracy of a national association. But yeah, when you get through it and you look back, you have a fresh perspective.
I would love to believe that people in positions of power and leadership are not either one, ignorant, or two, have their heads buried in the sand. But it's hard to believe that sometimes when you see some of the things that come at a national level and the slow pace with which the wheels of progress or the wheels of motion turn.
I'll give you a good example. When we were in Omaha, there's this emphasis.
What were you doing in Omaha?
I was having fun, just like you. Sweating the first weekend, and it was really nice.
It was really nice the second weekend.
But it was the Men's College World Series. And so I didn't go to Oklahoma City this year, but that was and I said to the host, did the NCAA do that? Did you participate? Why isn't it the Baseball College World Series and the Softball College World Series? We're presenting sports. And that's when you're like, okay, who made that decision? I get that we were adding men's Final Four and women's Final Four, the backdrop there. But that was, I'm introducing a new issue into reality.
I complained about that on the air, and my co-host just looked at me like that's what you're going to get hung up on. But I was like, it's always been the CWS. So it's
like a miss for the game. We're talking about baseball, so to the extent we can. Final Four is synonymous, so we had opportunities. But I take a step back. You know what? I lose perspective at times, and I think your question really should almost begin like a leadership seminar interview with me that says, hey, what are the things that worry you about your work? And it's like, what am I not seeing? Why am I not delegating things? Am I seeing forward enough? Am I too controlling? Am I not open enough? And, yeah, I think we all have to confess that from a leadership perspective from time to time. Now, there are also reasons you do things that may not be apparent, and we have to communicate that. I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty.
There you go. Heard that one.
Name that.
It's Greg Sankey. Name that tune? Or are you out of that game now?
Oh, I wasn't even paying attention. Is it Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones? It's the Stones.
We're in the neighborhood. Right, Will? We are in the neighborhood?
You're in the neighborhood, but not at the house.
I never saw the Stones until last November when they're in their 70s. So
there you go.
I got the band. That's good enough. All right now, there you go.
You can be part of the conversation on the C Spire text line. So you've talked about congressional change when we're talking about NIL and uniform rules, and maybe put a little bit of a wrinkle on that, saying not necessarily this Congress. What gives you any faith that the United States Congress is going to come together on this particular issue and, one, come up with a solution, and two, come up with a solution that's anywhere close to what we actually want it to be?
So I'm going to walk away from faith, and I'm going to talk about reality. It's clear there's interest on the part of both Senate and House members to be involved in crafting a solution around this issue, and even for many more broadly, acting on college sports. Whether there's a commitment to do so or not is the question. So I can't answer the faith. I do have a responsibility to try, because I think college athletics is a uniquely American experience. That's just reality. It doesn't exist in the same way around the globe. It draws people in. It draws people into our campuses. It draws people into our games. It creates community. I was with a senator at one of our games who said, look around. This is the only place where America comes together like this. And so the question is, with the pressures we face, some of the litigation that's there, the prospects for continuing litigation, can Congress help us adjust this model in a healthy way so that we have 20, 21, 22 national championship sports? So you have a women's golf team that wins a national championship a year ago, and a baseball team the next year that wins a national championship. So that you provide opportunities for people who are competing in the world championships right now in Eugene in track and field. I think those are relevant questions that have to be answered. Whether Congress will or not remains to be seen. The reason that Congress is important is I think we need a national standard for college athletics so we can have national competition, so that we can have games like will happen in Atlanta between Oregon and Georgia in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And we can have national championships, a College World Series, a Final Four, a CFP national championship game. If that doesn't happen at the national level, now we're back to states. And in 2019, as name, image, and likeness was being enacted at the state level, our observation and our colleagues was you don't want this to be a state-by-state issue. Think about the unfairness for a young person trying to figure out where do I go to college. He's got to learn different state laws, and where there are no state laws, what's the university policy? We have no oversight. We have no consumer protection. We have no transparency on contracts. We have no idea what young people are signing and whether there's entanglements created. So there's a better way, and my desire is that Congress is a part of that and does it in an appropriate way. We're not entangled in a bureaucracy, but we can have direct solutions to some of the clear problems we have.
But it's one thing for you to go and sit before a congressional committee and say these are the things that we need to do. And Keith Carter was involved with that. And there have been other coaches that have done that as well. But then getting Congress to act on that. You know, if Roger Wicker is the senator who's authoring the bill, and getting Republicans and Democrats to agree on anything, it just doesn't happen.
Well, it happens. It doesn't happen a lot right now.
It doesn't happen a lot.
Well, but, okay, so let's now take a step back. One of my observations is I think there was a flaw in the strategy. We should have been willing, as a national association, to litigate the onset of state legislative initiatives. We weren't. And so if you're going to have a national standard, and the outcome of the Alston decision, which was about antitrust implications in very clear language, there's limits on the NCAA's ability to govern. And we had said as a conference to the NCAA repeatedly, you can't enact rules that put state universities in conflict with state laws. So I think the complexities weren't acknowledged and recognized up front. do I want to be in Congress? I mean, like, that's not what I'm picking. I didn't go to school to earn a political science degree, but that's a reality that's in front of us. And if Congress chooses not to act, which it certainly can do, then we're going to be back to some other strategic parts, one of which is not can the conference regulate name, image, and likeness, but could we seek uniformity at state level, at least among our 11 states, so that we could have that standard of competition in the league.
Getting 11 states to agree to the same thing might be a challenge as well, but we'll leave that topic for another day. It is, but
we've actually been approached with people in key leadership positions interested in that.
Okay.
Because they understand the importance and the value and the relevance of college athletics.
There are a lot of complicated ways that I could ask this next question, and I'm just going to ask it at the most basic way I know how. When do college baseball teams, specifically Mississippi State and Ole Miss, get to offer as many scholarships as they want instead of 11.7?
I think the first answer is never. So I don't think there'll ever be a time when it's just as many as you want. We left that probably in the 60s and 70s.
Well, I was being a little loose with the question.
You were.
You know where I was headed with that.
When might the scholarship model change? That's a question to be answered. And I think it's been public that the Transformation Committee is looking at the scholarship model across the board. And so we're in a process now of receiving feedback from what we call the sport communities, so where there's NCAA committees assigned to a sport or coaches associations to say, if we change the model, what would be the right roster size, and with that roster size, what would be the right number of athletic scholarships. Between now and the end of December, early January, the Transformation Committee will complete its work. And, that's one of the issues on our agenda. Whether it's all done and baked by then remains to be seen. So if it finished then, you're not going to see it any earlier than next academic year. So nothing's going to change this year. And that's if we can come to that conclusion, which, there's a lot of ground to be covered between now and that destination.
So I know you don't love hypotheticals and you don't like to speculate, but what is a reasonable speculation?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, no, is it to go? I mean, if a roster size is 35, I mean, it seems unlikely that 35 scholarships would be the number, but is it unreasonable to think that you might get to 25 scholarships?
We'll see. I appreciate your homework on that.
You don't
Those
like
are
to
good numbers.
speculate,
Those
right?
are. I appreciate your numbers. I'm going to take some notes after this and
I'm sure
bring
you
that
will.
back to the committee.
You and others in your office have, in terms of looking at scheduling models, recognized and kind of publicly talked about that it's not a good thing right now to go 13 years between having home games on your campus between members of the conference, or 12, whatever the number is.
12. I was going to say,
12 years between.
I thought you had done your research there, and we had somebody that's way out of it. 12,
Off by a year. But 12 years, if it's not a permanent opponent, kind of marrying two issues here. If conference realignment and expansion continues, and let's say you add 2 more teams or 4 more teams or 6 or wherever that number ends up one day if it changes, does that not get you back to the exact same spot where it's really hard to play everybody in your league on a regular basis?
It does, and I'm not the one out there recruiting members. So our focus is on our 16-team conference that's scheduled to be in place in 2025. Really excited about the combination of our existing strength with the strength that will be added and the opportunity to move our teams through more frequently. And do you want to be an association or a conference? What do you want to be? And we've had those conversations a week after the announcement of the Big Ten, and a lot of the feedback was, we're connected to our communities, we're connected to our states and our region. That gives us a national platform. We have like-minded athletic programs, like-minded universities, fan bases that understand the rivalries, and we should cherish and respect that. And so I actually look at fits for expansion being about culture and outlook and mentality as much as anything else. And we don't have any urgency, any pressure to move. We're well positioned with the 16 that will be in place in 25. And a part of that, Richard, is I think it's really cool to have these big brands going through our campuses. I remember I was traveling through Memphis when Texas last played at Ole Miss, and the number of Texas fans in the Memphis airport when Delta was still using it as a major hub was unbelievable. We need that over and over and over. And I think we have that with 16. So I don't feel the pressure to just hit some number larger.
So many things we could talk about. I'll leave it with you here. Is there a reason to expand beyond money and keeping up with the Joneses?
Yes. One of the great, not secrets, but realities that doesn't get reported is Texas and Oklahoma never asked me about money. It was never in the conversation until we're at the end. So what they said is we want to be a part of something special like you, and that's where philosophy and connection would matter more.